Welcome back to Mr. Smoot's story time. Today we will finish the story of Jack and the Beanstalk. Then I will tell you the story of the Storybook Princess. First, said the giant, bring me my money bags, that I may count my golden pieces before I sleep. The giantess obeyed. She went and soon returned with 2 large bags over her shoulders, which she put down by her husband. There, she said, that is all that is left of the night's money. When you have spent it, you must go and take another baron's castle. That he shan't if I can help it, thought Jack. The giant, when his wife was gone, took out heaps and heaps of golden pieces, golden coins, and counted them and put them in piles till he was tired of the amusement. Then he swept them all back into their bags and, leaning back in his chair, fell fast asleep, snoring so loud that no other sound was audible. What do you think Jack is going to do now? Remember, first he took the magic hen that laid the golden eggs back to its mom. And now the giant is asleep and the money bags are next to him. Do you think Jack is going to take the money bags? I do too. Let's see what happens. Jack stole softly out of the wardrobe and, taking up the bags of money, which were his very own because the giant had stolen them from his father, he ran off and, with great difficulty, descending the beanstalk, laid the bags of gold on his mother's table. She had just returned from town and was crying at not finding Jack. There, mother, I have brought you the gold that my father lost. Oh, Jack, you are a very good boy, but I wish you would not risk your precious life in the giant's castle. Tell me how you came to go there again. And Jack told her all about it. Jack's mother was very glad to get the money, but she did not like him to run any risk for her. But after a time, Jack made up his mind to go again to the giant's castle. So he climbed the beanstalk once more and blew the horn at the giant's gate. The giantess soon opened the door, and she was very crazy and did not know him again. But she stopped a minute before she took him in. She feared another robbery. But Jack's fresh face looked so innocent that she could not resist him. And so she bade him come in and again hid him away in the wardrobe. By and by, the giant came home And as soon as he had crossed the threshold, as soon as he came through the door, he roared out, "Fee, fi, fo, fum. I smell the breath of an Englishman. Let him be alive or let him be dead. I'll grind his bones to make my bread." "You crazy old giant," said his wife, "you only smell a nice sheep, which I have grilled for your dinner." And the giant sat down, and his wife brought up a whole sheep for his dinner. When he had eaten it all up, he said, "Now bring me my harp, and I will have a little music while you take your walk." The giantess agreed and returned with a beautiful harp. The framework was all sparkling with diamonds and rubies, and the strings were all of gold. "This is one of the nicest things I took from the night," said the giant. "I am very fond of music, and my harp is a faithful servant." So he drew the harp towards him and said, "Play." And the harp played a very soft, sad tune. "Play something happier," said the giant. And the harp played a merry, happy tune. "Now play me a lullaby," roared the giant. And the harp played a sweet lullaby, to the sound of which its master fell asleep. Then Jack stole softly out of the wardrobe and went into the huge kitchen to see if the giantess had gone out. He found no one there, so he went to the door and opened it softly. He thought he could not do so with the harp in his hand. Then he entered the giant's room and seized the harp and ran away with it. But as he jumped over the threshold, as he left the castle, the harp called, "Master, master!" And the giant woke up with a tremendous roar. He sprang from his seat, and in 2 strides he had reached the door. But Jack was very nimble. He fled like lightning with the harp, talking to it as he went, for he saw it was a fairy, and telling it he was the son of its old master, the knight. Still, the giant came on so fast that he was quite close to poor Jack, and had stretched out his great hand to catch him. But luckily, just at that moment, he stepped upon a loose stone, stumbled, and fell flat on the ground, where he lay at his full length. This accident gave Jack time to get on the beanstalk and hasten down it. But just as he reached their own garden, he beheld the giant descending after him. "Mother, mother," cried Jack, "make haste and give me the axe." His mother ran to him with a hatchet in her hand, and Jack, with one tremendous blow, cut through all the beanstalks except one. "Now, mother, stand out of the way," said he. Jack's mother shrank back, and it was well she did so. For just as the giant took hold of the last branch of the beanstalk, Jack cut the stem quite through and darted from the spot. Down came the giant with a terrible crash, and as he fell on his head, he broke his neck and lay dead at the feet of the woman he had so much injured. Before Jack and his mother had recovered from their alarm and agitation, a beautiful lady stood before them. "Jack," said she, "you have acted like a brave knight's son and deserve to have your inheritance restored to you. Dig a grave and bury the giant, and then go and kill the giantess." "But," said Jack, "I could not kill anyone unless I was fighting with him, and I could not draw my sword upon a woman. Moreover, the giantess was very kind to me." The fairy smiled at Jack. "I am very pleased with your generous feeling," she said. "Nevertheless, return to the castle and act as you will find needful." Jack asked the fairy if she would show him the way to the castle, as the beanstalk was now down. She told him that she would drive him there in her chariot, which was drawn by 2 peacocks. Jack thanked her and sat down in the chariot. The fairy drove him a long distance till they reached a village which lay at the bottom of the hill. Here they found a number of miserable-looking men assembled. The fairy stopped her carriage and addressed them. "My friends," said she, "the cruel giant who oppressed you and ate up all your flocks and herds is dead. And this young gentleman was the means of your being delivered from him. And he is the son of your kind old master, the knight." The men gave a loud cheer at those words and pressed forward to say that they would serve Jack as faithfully as they had served his father. The fairy bade them follow her to the castle, and they marched thither in a body, and Jack blew the horn and demanded admittance. The old giantess saw them coming from the turret loophole. She was very much frightened, for she guessed that something had happened to her husband. And as she came downstairs very fast, she caught her foot in her dress and fell from the top to the bottom and broke her neck. When the people outside found that the door was not open to them, they took crowbars and forced the doors open. Nobody was to be seen. But on leaving the hall, they found the body of the giantess at the foot of the stairs. Thus, Jack took possession of the castle. The fairy went and brought his mother to him with the hen and the harp. He had the giantess buried and endeavored as much as lay in his power to do right to those whom the giant had robbed. Before her departure for fairyland, the fairy explained to Jack that she had sent the butcher to meet him with the beans in order to try what sort of lad he was. If you had looked at the gigantic beanstalk and only crazily wondered about it, she said, I should have left you where misfortune had placed you, only restoring her cow to her mother. But you showed an inquiring mind and great courage and enterprise. Therefore, you deserve to rise. And when you mounted the beanstalk, you climbed the ladder of fortune. She then took her leave of Jack and his mother. That was the story of Jack and the Beanstalk. The Storybook Princess, written by PreK, illustrated by Singh Visoth. Chamnan is a child who likes listening to stories. His father always tells stories to him. Dad, I want to hear a story, Chamnan says. His father begins. Once upon a time, a couple working as firewood choppers had 7 children. The youngest child was as small as a thumb. Chamnan interrupts. Dad, why is he as small as a thumb? Because he eats very little and grows slowly, his father said. Why does he eat very little? Chamnan asked. Because his family is poor. Chamnan asked. Why are his siblings normal? Now, do you want to hear the story or not? His father says. I want to, Chamnan says, but I want to hear a different story. I know this story already. His father begins another story. Once upon a time, lakes and ponds dried out. A crow flew to find water. It saw a jar half full of water, and it drank the water in the jar. Chomnan interrupts. Then the crow carried pebbles one by one. But wouldn't the crow get tired, Dad? Now, do you want to hear the story or not? His father asked. I want to, Chomnan says, but I want to hear another story. I know this one already. Will you interrupt me again? His father asked. I promise I won't, Chomnan says. Chomnan's father opens the book again and starts reading another story. Once, the sun and the wind made a bet. Dad, why is the sun so hot? Chomnan asked. Then you promise to stop interrupting me? His father asked. I'm sorry, Chomnan says. That's enough for tonight, son, his father says. I think you already know all of these stories. Good night. Okay, Dad, Chomnan says sadly. There he is in his bed. I wonder what Chomnan is thinking right now. Maybe he wants to hear another story. He hugs the book and falls asleep. That night, Chomnan hears the sound of a book opening. He gets up to check. Chomnan says to himself, Dad, don't make that noise. Hello? Chomnan calls out. Who are you? Hello, the girl says. Little finger. Wonder what is happening. Chomnan is curious. Strange. Your name is Little Finger? You're also strange, Ring Finger, she says. Chomnan frowns. My name is not Ring Finger, he says. Where are you from? Middle Finger, she says, ignoring Chomnan's question. Why don't you answer my question? Chomnan asked. Index Finger, she says. What do fingers have to do with anything? Chomnan asked. Where are you from? Thumb, she says. Chomnan feels angry. Why don't you answer my questions? He says. Don't you like questions? I don't mean to bother you, but I would like my book back. Chomnan takes the book from the girl. The girl smiles and says, thank you for asking so many questions. Even though I didn't answer them, I am a character in a story. Why didn't you answer my questions? Chomnon asked. I am a princess who can't answer questions, the girl says. A witch put a curse on me that stops me from answering questions. Chomnon becomes more curious. But why do you answer now? He asked. The girl responds with a smile. Because you asked more than 5 questions and broke the spell. That's more questions than the witch has fingers on her hand. Chomnon smiles and asks, why did you come here? I was bored, the princess says. I wanted to listen to your father's stories, but you interrupted him all the time. Chomnon laughs because it was true. Chomnon opens the book. If you want to listen, I will read you a story, he says. The princess replies excitedly, really? I would love to hear a story. Chomnon starts to read the story about the boy who was as small as a thumb. He reads the story and adds gestures with his hands. The princess listens carefully to every word. After a while, the princess begins to feel sleepy. Thank you for the story, she says, but I am sleepy now. Good night, princess, says Chomnon. I am sleepy as well. Chomnon and the princess both fall asleep. When Chomnon wakes up, the princess is gone. His father comes in the room. Son, what are you looking for? He asks. Nothing, Dad, Chomnon says. Hurry up and get dressed for school, his father says. Chomnon smiles at the storybook. He eats breakfast, and then his father takes him to school. That night, Chomnon says to his father, Dad, tonight I will tell you a story. What story? His father asked. The princess who can't answer questions, Chomnon says. Chomnon and his father have a very happy night. I wonder where he got the idea to tell his dad a story about the princess who can't answer questions. Maybe today you could make up a story yourself and tell someone a story.